Hi, Johann. How are you?
Hey Taylor, I'm good, thank you. And you?
Good. Yeah, we just connected last week. I'm in Chicago, so it is 7:40 here. So I'm not a morning person, so I hope this session goes well. And Johann is currently in Switzerland, which we talked about that I need to visit in Geneva. But yeah, super excited to kick off this session. Yeah, Johann, where do I start? So he was at P&G for 12 years, which really allowed him to build some solid fundamentals on brand building and business savviness. And he's actually at Logitech right now. So he's been there about 4.5 years as a marketing director for Logitech's music category. And he expanded his scope by recently taking on the streamers and creators category, which I'm super excited to talk to him about today. And then in parallel, he's a musician, which is super cool. So his passion of being a musician really is a natural link to the new category he's working on at Logitech. So yeah, super excited to have you. How's your day? How's your day going so far? Or how's your night
Pretty
going?
good.
What time is it?
No, it's only 2:30 p.m., so that's totally fine. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. It's not as late as I thought it was.
Nah,
But
no.
I was gonna say we're gonna start off. I always like to ask a personal question before we dive into the nitty gritty here. But if you could describe yourself in 3 words, what would those words be, Johann?
You mean at work or in general?
In general, let's get to know you first.
All right, okay. I would say first one would be passionate, both for work and outside, because that's if you don't do things with passion, then you might as well try something else. So that's the first one. The second one is I like to do stuff with other people, and actually that's how I think best as well. It's bouncing ideas off of each other. I usually think better than on my own, sitting on my desk. So at my desk. So that's the second one. And the third one is I'm trying to keep things lighthearted, even if whether it's at work or outside. But even if we do some serious stuff, but there is only so much seriousness we can have, and I think from time to time, having a bit of fun is useful, whatever the context. So that would be me.
I love all three. I feel like I'm all three too. So I feel like we're
We're
kind
gonna
of
have a good time.
similar. I feel like you need to have a freshness and silliness about you, especially in these times, right? You shouldn't take everything so serious. And it definitely seems like you collaborate with a lot of people at Logitech, and you're a musician. So that's super cool. And at Logitech, what role, does leadership play in fostering a data-driven culture?
Yeah, I mean, at Logitech, as in every other company, budgets are always scarce, regardless of the industry or the company size. So every dollar spent needs to be justified. So basically, at Logitech is, if I summarize it bluntly, it's no data, no money. It's pretty simple. And honestly, I think it's the right mindset because one thing I used to say in my previous job is money sometimes can make you lazy. And when I was at P&G, I think a lot of people would agree that P&G is a big company with lots of money, but at the same time, sometimes it kind of when you have when you have very little money, you need to think really hard about how to invest that little money you have. And frankly, you ask yourself some pretty fundamental questions. And later on, if you have much bigger budgets, maybe you stop asking yourself those questions. So I think for me, it's and by the way, given that we have also more data than ever now, frankly, that's a bit of a shame if we don't use that data to make the strongest possible plans, again, regardless of the budget. And I think that's our job as marketeers to use the company money wisely and the best possible way. So I think sometimes it hurts, or sometimes it's hard to say until you show me data, you don't get the money. but fundamentally, I don't think it's a CFO thinking, so no, I don't want to give anyone money. It's more, I think, a marketeer purpose to say, well, what would you do if it was your money? And that's how I see it.
I couldn't agree more. And how is the culture like internally? I'm curious. Do you guys do any do you foster relationships with your team? Like how do you guys like stay sane in this working from remote world that we're now in?
Well, for us to stay sane, and I'll speak about myself for a second, I would have to be sane in the first place, and I'm not so sure about that. But no, I think the last 2 years have been quite crazy for everyone. Personally, as I said, right now I'm working from home, and that's easy. But at the same time, yes, you save time in commuting and so on. But at the same time, you just miss physically seeing people. There's probably 70% of the people I work with now that I've never met in person, which is tough because when you're in front of someone for a day or two and you have lunch or dinner and so on, you can have those kind of more human connections instead of let's jump on a Zoom for 1 hour and discuss about business topics and then see you next week. So I think it's a really different way to manage that. Well, it looks like everyone had to deal with it, but I know not everyone was at ease with it. Personally, I'm okay to work from home. I know I have some friends and colleagues who struggle much more, but still those human relationships, I don't think anything will replace that anytime soon. So
yeah, I'm with you. I'm an in-person type of girl. So for Influential, got to go to New York last month, which was super exciting to meet our team because I've been seeing them on Zoom calls for the past 6 to 7 months already. But you have so much expertise in leadership roles, just being at P&G for over 12 years. I know when we connected last week, you mentioned that you were going to take an internship in London, but then they're like, we want you in Switzerland for a actual position. But what are some of the most important leadership lessons that you've learned throughout your career? And like, what was it like before you learned that lesson, and what was it like after?
The first one that comes to mind is I would say it's amazing to see what we can achieve when no one cares about who gets the credit. And that means you as a manager, you as a team member. In the end, that's always something that I've tried to have, again, as a team member or a team leader, to make sure that everyone was contributing to their area of expertise. And as a leader, your job is to make sure that you have the right combination of these skills, which is both professional skills and human interactions. And that's probably both the most challenging and exciting part of managing a team, is to find the right profiles and make sure that everyone works together. But eventually, making sure that everyone feels part of a bigger purpose, and not just I've done it, so therefore I will get the credit, and I don't care about the guy next door who did also something else, but this time it's for me to shine. I've always thought about it as we're all in the same boat, and eventually what matters is whether what we do is meaningful and successful in the market. Who did what, as long as everyone contributed to their skill set, I usually don't care that much. So for me, that's the first point. The second point is more from experience as well, is usually I've noticed that when you don't get what you want or need or expected from, say, an agency or even your colleagues, I usually start looking at my own brief before saying, oh, it's because they're not good, or he's not. Because usually there is something in it to say, I will use the polite way to say it, but garbage in, garbage out. And sometimes when you write a brief, you're very clear on what you want, but what ends up on a document may not be everything you have in mind. So for you make connections between all these things. But when you're seeing just the document, you may not have all those insights and so on. And I think that's a good reminder for all of us to say, am I communicating clearly what I'm trying to do? And if not, then before, instead of blaming the others, probably, look at yourself. And I've tried to do it. It's not very easy, but I think it's a healthy approach. And the last point I would mention is, I was talking before about the people management. I think it's as I was saying, it's super exciting because you basically you really need to connect with people. You need to understand what motivates them, what level of guidance they need. Some of them want more, some of them want less. So somehow, as a people manager, you need to adapt to each profile and make sure that they actually can work together. So that's the cool part. And when I started getting reports, when I started managing people, I was like, cool, now I have people to do my work. Yes. Didn't really turn out to be that way, surprisingly enough. But I think it's really about make sure that you provide the right guidance, you motivate them, you find a way to excite them about the work. And as I'll quote Spider-Man's uncle, it's like, with great powers come great responsibilities. And the higher up you go in a company, the more people you manage. And therefore, the more people can blame you if anything is not working. I think you need to accept that as a manager, to say, well, yeah, if something's not working, it's for you to fix it. And that's tough, but that's also super exciting.
It's like, love Spider-Man, love Marvel. That's like the last thing I heard. But the first example you mentioned, I think it's huge to like give your coworkers or like your team a shout out. That could be like on Slack. When I was at TikTok and at Influential, it's very like a team and very good team environment, very positive, where yes, the whole team worked on a project, but it's nice to give someone a shout out if they went like beyond, above and beyond, right, for a project. Yeah, I love all three. I feel like you're crushing this right now. And welcome to the creator role. So now you're working with creators and streamers. I mean, totally different kind of what you were doing at P&G. So in your opinion, I think you said you've been in this role for 8 months now. What do you think is kind of like the leading social platform where creators can kind of stand out the most, that is helping Logitech with marketing currently?
First off, I don't think there is one channel that leads for all creators. If you're a gaming streamer, you probably, Twitch is probably your main channel. If you're a YouTuber, well, YouTube is probably your main channel. So I think for me, it really starts with being clear on who you target and, being where they are. And that does not mean being everywhere for everyone, because then you go crazy or you don't have enough money. But I think, when we develop for me, when it comes to deciding which platform to focus on, it's really about putting ourselves in the shoes of the viewer, like what's in it for them. If I'm on YouTube, do I go to YouTube for the same reason as TikTok or, Snapchat or whatever? So, every platform has a purpose, and our job is to say, okay, is my audience going on this platform? And if yes, then what are the codes for this platform? And, there was a time when we were saying, we can have the same assets across the board and that's easy peasy. Doesn't really work. But I think it's really, and that I suspect I will repeat myself a few times in that discussion, but it's really about starting with understanding who you market to, and what's going on. What are they trying to do? Those creators, for example, is it education, some tutorials, or this is how you can set up your gear or whatever? Is it entertainment? Is it inspiration? So why are people going to these platforms? And that starts there. And then our job as brand builders or marketeers is to make sure that we give them something that fits with that objective they have, what they're looking for. And if we just go with, here's my big ad that has nothing to do with the reason why you joined, you went on this platform to begin with. And by the way, we see that all day long, right? But how often do we, yes, algorithm help target and so on, but how often do we really click on those ads when you're looking for a video on YouTube and you just like need to go through 20 seconds of something that you don't care about? So it's really about how can I connect with the viewer, with the audience, and give them something meaningful on that platform. And whenever we as a brand manage to do that in a what feels like an authentic connection, let's say, that is where I think the power, or it gets much more powerful, and we get much more traction from consumers. So I think.
Yeah. I definitely think the smaller the budget's right, you should kind of focus on that one platform rather than like a multi-platform approach. I see that a lot at Influential and other companies that I've worked at, which is very interesting. But how is Twitch? I'm curious, like how you work with obviously streamers and creators on Twitch, but like, can you give us an example of like a campaign you've ran on Twitch? Because it's so interesting to me.
Yes, with Twitch, actually, we work with them as part of the work we do with Amazon advertising. So there is some activation that we do on Twitch. In this case, Twitch is managed as a media platform. And then separately, so we do have, we have done in the past a few partnerships with them at kind of brand level. Nothing major. I think we're, discussing with them on that front, but probably there's something. There will be some new things coming up. But frankly, I mean, usually most of the time when we work with Twitch, we actually don't work with Twitch. We work with creators on Twitch, and these are the people who we are selling products to. By the way, maybe I should have started with that. When I say, I'm managing the streamers and creators category. That category is basically Logitech providing products for all content creators. So that means blue microphones, that means webcams, that means lights, that means wireless cameras. So all the types of products, and mice and keyboards, of course, because that's the original business from Logitech, and it still is the biggest part of the business. But what I'm doing is basically selling products to all content creators so that their content they look great on screen, they sound great. So that's why working with them when they are on Twitch or any other streaming platform, when you have a mic, which of course I don't have now, but if I were to have to use one of the many mics I have at home, that this mic, you see it on screen. So that's also something that is important for us to work with creators and make sure they are happy with the product they have. It's not like a big fat product placement, here is a check and there you go. It's like, no, we don't do that. Actually, we want them to experience the product, and if they like it, great, they use it. If they don't, fine, they'll find something else. So it's really about, Twitch is more the platform on which we connect with creators most of the time.
And Johann, you're doing, are you marketing to different, like US? Are you doing like marketing to the US, UK? What markets are you like targeting?
So yeah, so
global approach type of thing.
Yeah, so I have a global role. But I'd say the two biggest regions we have are North America and Europe. But we also have quite some business in Australia, in China, in Japan, and so. That's actually part of the cool, that's part of the cool thing about this job is that you talk to many different people, many different cultures, and both the people you work with and also the people you market to, and really trying to understand what's going on. For example, in China, you have a lot of people who are simply using their mobile to create content. And to do things that me as a French, I wouldn't think would be possible, like having 3 mobiles and doing a ton of things with it. I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. So understanding those cultural differences and dynamics also makes it both interesting, intellectually interesting, but also begs the question of how do we drive scale in our operations. And there is some that we can do, maybe not as much as maybe our finance friends would like, but that's what we need to do. Yeah.
Thank you. And there is so much competition out there. Obviously, we're talking about advertisements. You see them on YouTube, the ones you don't want to see, things you don't care about, products you don't care about. So what are, the ways in which you're working to ensure that Logitech stands out on these platforms, on Twitch, on TikTok?
Yeah. So, and maybe I was just mentioning the product portfolio that we have, but just to give you a bit of background, 2.5 years ago, so Logitech has been around for 41 years. 2.5 years ago, what we call the streamers and creators category did not exist at Logitech. We were still selling mice and keyboards and headsets. And then Logitech bought the Blue Microphones brand. Then we bought the Mevo wireless cameras. We bought the Lytra lights. We bought the Streamlabs software to actually build that category to be able to provide full solutions to content creators. And but for the last 2 and a bit years, these were like 4 individual businesses, meaning if you didn't know that they were part of the same company, that would not be the case for you. So the first thing we did a few months ago was we brought all these brands together under an umbrella brand called Logitech for Creators. I know that's a surprising name for a company like Logitech and selling to creators. So the intent here being to facilitate the shopper journey, because instead of starting from scratch with every product category, you say, look, I have this kind of one-stop shop where I have this platform and I see actually many products available. Some of them I would need now, some of them I would need later. So it helps us to leverage the Logitech brand equity, which again, we've been there for a while. So that's a pretty healthy equity. But at the same time, making people's life easier with like one brand, one design, one pack design, or look and feel that will make people feel, oh, okay, I know this brand now. They also have this and they also have that. So that's easier for them. So that's the first thing we did. And the second thing is actually last month, we launched a new communication campaign called Together We Create. And the purpose of this campaign is to really put the creator at the center of everything we do. So because if you think about it, sometimes the work of the creator can be very lonely. You need to think about the creative idea you have, and then you need to write the script or shooting reel or whatever, then record it yourself, edit it, post it, manage comments. So it's a lot of work, and usually especially when creators start, they need to do it all. So what we're trying to do here is to say, look, we're here to help you. Of course, we provide you great products that are easy, plug and play, all the things that they would want. But we also want to make them feel that we're with them, like beyond the product side, but helping them get successful, giving them tips, giving them visibility on mental health challenges. So that's one of the big issues with creators, big creators today. They feel they can't disconnect. So what do you do? What can we do to help them realize when it's actually getting to a place where they shouldn't be? So it's really about the purpose of that Logitech for Creators brand and Together We Create campaign is really to create that meaningful connection with creators beyond selling them products. It's really about, hey, and some of them actually have already played that back to us to say, look, it feels like you're with me, like I started 2-3 years ago, and you've helped me grow by multiple things. And that's really what we want to do, whether you have 5 or 50 followers or 5 million. It's
Mhm.
not the point. So that's what we try to do to connect with our audience.
I love how you're giving back to the creator community. I think that's great. I also think I need Logitech products. I'm not a creator by any means, but I'm always online and always on social media platforms. So I think I need to get some
I think we
gear
can
from
work
you.
something out. Yeah.
But what innovations and technologies are you utilizing to execute your strategies on, again, like that global scale?
I would mention three things. The first one is spanning across a spectrum of activities. The first one is, if we look at when like many people I'm sure listening now, when you have a broad geographic scope, it's very difficult to track manually how everything is implemented. So we have a full stack software engineer who who has been creating like bespoke apps and softwares for us, which now apparently lots of people also want. So that's good. But one of the things that he created was an app that helps us track all the e-tail or e-commerce content, how it's being implemented across all our key platforms. Because you can say, look, here is a set of assets, we send it to all the regions, and then if only 10 or 20% of it is being used, that kind of defeats the purpose. So, and we know that we have hundreds of customers globally, so we can't have every market check it manually. So that's one of those things that help us make sure that the strategy gets translated into what consumers see eventually, because that's the whole point. So that's one thing. The second one is we have also an internal platform called Voice of Consumer. And this one is basically an aggregator of all online reviews on your products and your competitors' products. And that helps us to always kind of stay in touch with how people perceive our products and what they like, what they don't like. Also get a feel of what could be missing with our products, and that helps feed the product development thinking. So, okay, right now looks like we're doing great on this and this and that, but that one seems to be missing or behind. So can we do something there for the next generation of products? So that would be like the second point that is also very, very useful. And the third one is probably the most straightforward or commonly used, but leveraging platforms like Tracker or Chorus Tracker for influencers that I'm sure, Taylor, you're very familiar with, Chorus for social media and so on. So the intent being really to always try to find the right profiles of people to work with, but also make sure that we monitor and we track what's working best or not. And the one that are working best, can we derive some patterns that help us create content based on what works already, instead of throwing everything against the wall and see what sticks, which sometimes happens. So it's really about optimizing the plans and getting some regular feedbacks on what we do, amplify what we do, what works, drop or change what doesn't. So these would be like three examples of how we leverage technology to try to optimize our plans. Yeah.
Well, those are all great technologies. I'm like, we'll have to meet after this and talk about influential and how we can help you with creators as well. But
Yeah.
what's top of mind as you are preparing for the second half of 2022? Obviously, we're almost there, I feel like. So we can even talk about next year. What does the first half of the year look like in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, first off, we've just had 2 years of COVID that changed a lot, the consumer and shopper behavior. So we saw, for example, a significant increase in e-tail or e-commerce sales because the stores were closed at some point. So it did change some of the behaviors. For example, in Australia, e-tail was always a very small, much smaller portion of the overall sales than in rest of Asia or in Europe or North America. And now actually we have seen this starting to shift. So one of the questions I'm asking myself is, okay, so is that, we moved from here to there, would it go back to the original place, or would it keep going that way, or somewhere in the middle? So from a channel management point of view, that's one thing that I'm asking myself now. The second point is also due to the COVID effect, because people were at home. Lots of people decided that it would be great to get started with a YouTube channel or whatever, start streaming on Twitch. So we saw a massive increase in sales in category growth, basically, for the content creator product, which is great when it happens. And then you have that in the base, and then that artificial bubble somehow is not there anymore. So what is the new base that we should look at? That's to me another point that we need to look into. And the third one is that the creator economy keeps growing. So there is no debate there, and more people want to create content on multiple platforms. More and more people improve as well, so upgrade their setup or upgrade the quality of what they do anyway. So of course that becomes increasingly attractive to many brands. So another thing that I have in mind is, okay, how do we manage the growing competition, and how do we still stay ahead? Back to your previous question on how do you connect with them and so on. If you have a proper genuine connection with them, that does help. It doesn't guarantee it will stay forever. You need to nurture it, but it's a good start. And I would say, for me, the last point is, unfortunately, with the high volatility from a macroeconomic environment, between the conflict in Ukraine, inflation everywhere, component shortages in Asia, and all these things that are happening, that are interconnected. There is a lot of uncertainty on where the business is going to go, but also where the consumers are going to go. Because with inflation, they will have to make choices on what they decide to spend their time and money on, and what will that be? That we need to see. So I think there are a lot of things going on, a lot of volatility. But for me, it keeps coming back to the same point, to say, we need to stay focused on our audience. What do they have in mind? And if we're listening to them carefully enough, I think those broader macroeconomic factors will come into play when they tell you, how they feel, what they're looking for, what they want to do. So instead of me trying to have a crystal ball and predict everything that's going to happen in the world, I'll actually keep listening to my audience to try to understand how we can best help them succeed in whatever they want to do.
It's like, I see Diana. I was like, I think we have a little bit more time, so I'm going to keep going. Talking about innovations and technologies again. So digital marketers, obviously we have to keep up to speed, right? On what's coming out. And this kind of includes understanding the metaverse. Some people are very excited about the metaverse. Some people are not. And it's full potential. So how is your brand kind of aligning with the rise of metaverse and this digital forward environment? Are you playing around with it, or?
We just did, actually, last month, 4 weeks ago. Yeah, we did. We had an event in the metaverse on Roblox. And this one was actually, last year we did an event to celebrate the best up and coming creators on TikTok. So that was an event we hosted in partnership with TikTok. That was good. And then we said, now this year, for the second season, how can we make it even more exciting for creators? And that's why we created that event on Roblox. And it's called the Songbreaker Awards. We did this year. We partnered with several artists like Lizzo or Gail, and also we had some important creators jumping in, like Jaden Smith or Shroud, guys from multiple like gamers or actors, singers, or whatever. So the intent being to have a fun, interactive event where people can join and walk around the kind of the artificial world and try to have some fun connecting with people all over the world. So, and this, frankly, we got much more traction than I shouldn't say that probably, but we got more traction than I was expecting. So we had like people from 150 markets all over the world. We had millions of visitors and so on, and the quality of interactions was also very good. So that's a good example where if back to my point about are you doing something to educate or entertain or stuff, this was mainly entertainment, but if you do it well, it will anyway influence how people perceive your brand. So that was a cool event. Yeah.
Well, that sounds awesome. And it sounds like you had a lot of cool content creators and celebrities, which probably helped. What do you think personally about the metaverse? Are you a fan? Right? Obviously you're doing it for Logitech, right? I'm just curious.
I'm as a marketeer, I find it very interesting. As a person, I'm already busy enough trying to figure out what to do with my real life. So that's probably right now, let's say that's probably not where I would spend my time. But again, I think staying in touch with the audience as well. It's like it's a choice, and people do whatever they want. But for sure, we can't not have it in mind when we these days. So we need to work with it.
Yeah, and then I have one question, and if we have a few minutes, if anyone has any questions they want to shoot over, please feel free to enter those in the chat. How are creators, I'm just working with like Jada Smith and other content creators, how are they loving the metaverse? What does that look like working with a creator on the metaverse versus like a platform like Twitch or TikTok? Is it different? Like, how does it vary?
I think there is always this the feeling of this new shiny object that people get excited about because they say, oh, maybe that's going to be the next big thing, or maybe it's going to help me create a different type of connection with my fans or audience or followers than I usually have. So I think a lot of those kind of big creators, they are always trying to look at the latest, greatest technologies to help them maximize their reach and connect with more and more people. So there is this element of technology savviness. That gives me another outlet to talk to people, to interact with people. And with the same with NFTs, by the way. We see some artists going big time on it, and some others going, what is that about? I don't understand. So again, I think it really depends on their personal kind of, are they interested in that kind of more technologically advanced platforms, or more, I want to stay with my usual stuff and that's it. But also, what do my audience want to see from me? And I remember maybe a couple of years ago, there was the, Travis Scott doing a show on Fortnite, which was massive. Since then, we had there were a few other events like that, but that's the kind of things where you go, wow, okay, I wasn't expecting that. And because of that, you get a massive visibility, because that's new, that's breaking the mold. So there is always, I think, this search for, getting noticed, but doing it in a way that will be seen as meaningful by your audience.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. I feel like TikTok was the shiny object. I mean, I think it still is for a lot of brands and creators, but now it's like, what's next? What's next always? So that's obviously the metaverse. But I have a few more questions here, but I was going to say, Diana, where are we on time?
I think on time we have to get wrapped up here, but that was an amazing session. So definitely, if people have more questions or want to engage, please reach out to Taylor and Johann. I'm sure they will continue to engage with you. Thank you both so much. That was a fascinating session. And yeah, I'm very excited to see what's next as well. We're definitely keeping our eye on it here at Brand Innovators.